Hello, 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 and welcome to another Daily Code Fun. Let's go. Speaking of, I need to go through and make sure that all of my sounds are audible to me. I know you guys can hear it, but anytime that I disconnect and reconnect my headphones, it does this weird thing where it's like, you know what? I'm not going to let you hear anything. Nothing. Okay, so anyway. Hi, happy Wednesday. Oh my goodness, it's Wednesday. I've been vegging all day, so I spent a lot of extra time um, doing work-related things. And so I took some time to do non-work related things and also study at the same time because I still want to pass the exam on the first try so that I can get that in my profile. Anyway, hello everyone. Hopefully you are well. Moving on. We're going back to the application we've been working on this whole time. Hopefully you've been having fun with me. Um, we are working on setting up testing, and part of this setup is now the primary thing that we're looking at is mocking our database so that we can test our service server-side service things. Hello, good VJ. I got your messages not too long ago. Sorry I didn't respond earlier. Um, yeah, if there's ever anything that you want to get in contact with me for, just type it out and then I'll get to it when I get to it. But yeah, okay. So here's one of the things that we were trying to set up for our test, which is adding DB context factory. Awesome. Good VJ just said he started a new job. Awesome. What are you doing? What is your job? As a React developer. Ooh. 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 Go you. That's exciting, maybe. I mean, I hope you are enjoying it, of course. Of course. How long ago did you start that job? This past Monday. Look, you're already responding to me even with the delay. It was almost like you predicted that I was going to ask. Well, congratulations on your new job. Really excited for you. Oh, all right. So while we are waiting, let's look up some techniques. After I read my email that just now came in, that I don't really need to pay attention to at the moment. Yeah, I'm going to mark it as unread because it is something that I do want to respond to, but I don't need to do that right now. Yeah, and Dukasoft is congratulating Good VJ. Awesomeness, good times. But yeah, let's do some research into figuring out how to mock databases in XUnit tests. Ooh. It's like, it's funny because I hadn't been getting emails all morning, and now suddenly, now that I'm streaming, I'm getting emails up the wooza. Good times. Fantastic times. All right, so let's look at XUnit test mock DB context entity framework. Of course you can. You can ask any type of question you feel like, Hanso. Hi, and hello, and happy Wednesday to you. Welcome in. So I've definitely heard of mock. I know a lot of people have used mock, but this is a 2016 article. So maybe there is a more current way to do it, especially since this one looks like it's applying to Entity Framework 6. I'm just going to skim through this to see if there is a more recent comment. Dukasov says, I bet the email tells you to keep streaming for another 24 hours. Oh, man. I don't know if I can do... I'll leave that alone. I've already done a 24-hour day. I'll say it that way. How old is this article? Do we have a date? Hello? Getting some comments back August 2021, so hopefully that means it's fairly recent. Only a year old. So we'll look at this, but first, let's read out Hansohai's question. You really, really don't have to at me. I promise I read all of the chat messages. I didn't visit the stream for quite some time. When did you start again on YouTube? So I haven't actually been streaming on YouTube. I've only been posting the videos after 24 hours. And that was at the beginning of, it was pretty much close to the beginning of this job. So around May, the end of May, beginning of June. So Hansohai said, I kind of understand the benefit of programming to interface, but there are some times where you have to cast down to the subclass using casting and instance of to check in order to use method variables that the interface doesn't have. If you use instance of, will the idea of programming to interface be broken? There are different patterns that you can use now for casting, and instead of using instance of, like if you're in a switch statement, and you're switching on, let's say, it's going to be an I transaction entry service. Did I spell it wrong or something? Maybe I don't have just a regular I transaction service, so let me make one of those really quick. And that won't have anything special in it. The only thing that we'll do is have that implement I transaction service, or extend iTransaction service so that we can use it. Okay, so we have some variable here, iTransaction service hold equals new transaction entry service of whatever we want to do. Why can I create it? Oh, with db context factory equals, yeah, let's do that. And then we'll create a private field. And we'll pass it in here. Okay, so that should take care of all of that. So you could do a switch on hold, and you can do pattern matching, case, transaction entry service of deposit entry view model. Case. Awesome. So it gave me all of them. So this is one way to do all of the casting directly. And so this is intended use for interfaces. So let's say you're just getting back an interface and you want to use the concrete class, then instead of using type of or instance of. So Java also has something like this as well. So I believe that that is intended use so that you can get to, let's say in our deposit version of this, we have some extra methods and public properties. Yeah, Java and C# are quite similar in that regard. So I don't think that it is violating any rules when it comes to interfaces when you're trying to get the concrete version of the interface and you're doing either a switch or a if hold is or yeah hold is this, then you can also use the same, let's call it service one so we don't break those down there. Then you are also already casting directly to this thing, the concrete implementation, and you're doing your logic inside of here. And again, I think that that is just the intended use of interfaces in general. So short answer to your question, I think that that is not breaking the idea of programming to interface. Two say no, one say yes. One says you gotta do what you gotta do. Can you articulate the reasons that the ones that said no, what reasons they gave you? Or I'm sorry, the ones that said yes, the ones that said that is not something you should be doing with interfaces. Anyone watching House of Dragon? Yeah, definitely. But if you're going to talk about it, please don't say anything spoilery in our chat. Um, I am personally caught up, but I don't know if anyone else who is watching it or wants to watch it is caught up or even has the ability to. Or yeah, it's a very long explanation, but the streamer is still online. I mean, I don't need to know. I was just wondering. I was just wondering if he had some feedback. He's just one thing, Sweet Home Dragon. Hello, Simon Gearing. Simon Gearing. Simon. Hello, Simon. I keep wanting to say Simon Engineering, but you know that. Welcome. So I am currently looking up some information on how to mock the DB context in an XUnit project. And I guess it would be testing framework agnostic anyway. And Italo, oh my gosh. I already forgot what we said we're going to call you. I think we said we're just going to call you Italo. Is that what we agreed on? I'm going to put it in my notes so that I remember. So Simon says, would you like a tip to make your test fail closer to the point of an issue if there's a problem with your DI? Of course, I would love that. Yes, please. Tukasaw says, how about just using his name? The whole name, Italo Rayon? Okay, so just Rayon. So if you change get service for get required service, yeah, absolutely can do that. So right now this is in the constructor for the tests. Oh my goodness. That effort is done, okay? And I am on me time, my time. Anyway, so yeah, I do think that that's a great idea though. So what Simon was saying is if you use get required service instead of just get service, instead of just get service, if there is no dependency injection that is able to happen here in our mocking, um, or even in just our initial setup, then it's going to throw an exception up here before even getting into the tests. So I really, really appreciate that thought, and I like it a lot. Dugasoft is like, no offense, just some names are kind of hard to pronounce, and I find it funny to listen to when people try to pronounce them. um, so the guy that says yes is because you're deliberately breaking the assumption of only supporting the interface. But in your application, you aren't really planning on swapping out the inner or the concrete class for your implemented application. Although, yeah, that I can agree to an extent with that person's argument. It's a good one because you're also trying to code in a very decoupled kind of way so that in the future, if you do need to swap out the implementation, you can. And then you don't know that there are or you would have to go into the current version of the concrete class to know that there are. So, oh, yeah. And then what if you're doing like unit testing on a component and you're dependency injecting, and that's where you're trying to use the concrete class or in a service or yeah, just anywhere. Okay, I can agree with them. That's a good argument. I can see that. Yeah. The more I think about it, the more I completely agree with them. That's a really good argument for that. Simon continued to say, one thing I have an example for in my GitHub code is a unit test that builds the DI container and then it iterates all registered types in the container and attempts to instantiate them. This will catch if I add a constructor DI argument to an existing constructor and forget to add it to DI. And so you're talking about like when I am doing deposit service here and it's trying to use my concrete class for that. And I have, for some reason, in that class a whole bunch of DI, such as my DB context. Then we would at least know that when we try to instantiate this I transaction entry service of deposit entry view model, none of its dependencies are going to cause an error. So I think that that's what this is doing for the most part. But do you have maybe do you have a different approach where you're actually going service provider dot something that allows you to iterate all of the, what is it called? Items in the container? get service says. Yeah, so how are you enumerating all of the services in the container then? Oh, the code is, you can post a link if it's easy enough to do that. Yeah, anything that's going to make this experience easier and done correctly as well, um, I'm definitely open to. So this is my first real stab at making sure we do some sort of testing or TDD that, yeah, and then hopefully be able to understand it. Probably something like this. Yeah, it's probably just for each service and services. Service dot implementation factory dot invoke. Arc provider. To be honest, if you have covered for all your services in the way your example on the screen does, you'll be covered anyway. Yeah, so this one is going to be just for my transaction services though. So if I have a more consistent way to do this throughout all of the tests that I end up writing, that would be much more beneficial. But did you post your GitHub? Because you said the code's up there if you want to see it, but I don't know where up there is. What time is this? Monday. I don't know if I'll be able to attend that. Goodness griefus. And which Friday is this? The 23rd? Is that next week Friday? Okay. Well, thank you for being able to get that far. I appreciate it. So we'll look in source and tests and there's an automapper one. Dependency injection extensions. Be able to instantiate all registered. Hey, I found it. Oh, and the Simon branch. Okay. So you're actually doing, oh, that's awesome. You're doing it as a test. Oh, I love this. Oh, I love this so much. I am curious why this file is called dependency injection extensions. Oh, okay. So you actually have a dependency injection extensions class, and that's what you're pulling from here. So like add mocks of external server-side dependencies, add admin assistant. Okay, I like it. So the question is, how exactly do I pull this over in an easy, easy way without needing to implement a ton of stuff? So I like this. And that's dependency injection extensions. And we just got a follow. Thank you so much, Xspore. I mean, Spore. Just Spore. For the follow. Welcome to the Daily Code Fun, where we are trying to learn how to do test-driven development. And right now we're working on setting up all of the mocks for the database, for dependency injection, in a reusable way. So right now the approach that I have here, which was a Copilot recommendation, will work because I am looking at all of the services that are being used throughout this test. Happy Christmas, MIT license for the win. But if I create a new test class for, let's say, a different type of service or just whatever else I want to test with that set of tests, I just want to be able to do one place where I test all of my dependency injection to make sure that that's not what's going to cause any errors within here. So for example, my deposit test service, the actual implementation, oh my goodness, I have hiccups. The actual implementation here, excuse me, has an IDB context factory dependency. And if I didn't remember to prepare that in my DI container, then I would have issues. And so, or I'm sorry, then this test would fail, but not because the method itself is not implemented correctly. It's because I forgot to, in my test library, dependency inject the DB context factory, for example. Ooh. How is the front end of this application? Do you have the design? Asks Rayon. And the answer is yes to both. Yes, this application front end is. So we started a little bit on design. For the UI, we sketched out a few ideas of what we wanted it to look like. We gave ourselves this flat view, the neumorphic view, which I kind of liked and kind of didn't like, especially for the landing page. I don't like it, but maybe for the rest of the app, it might make sense to have something that is neumorphic. And then I played around with the color scheme, came up with something okay-ish, in my opinion. I think what this is going to end up being, by the way, now that we've actually put one of the pages together, is something more along the lines of, nope. Oh man, it's so hard to select things sometimes. So all of these, oh, are they locked? Is that what the issue is? So let's go with this. Oh, what? Why couldn't I also get tab? I don't know. I don't know why I can't also pick up this flippin' tab title. Here, put you in tab content, and that'll fix it. There. Scooch. Dang it. So I think the tabs are still gonna... Let's look at it both ways. I'm probably gonna move this into the center until I can figure out what I'm gonna have on the right side. I was planning on having maybe the account overview with current balances and stuff on the right. Otherwise, center this on the page. So yeah. Yeah, I think I just need to do that. I need to sketch out what's going to go over here on the right. But that's as far as we got for the design part. And then I started implementing it. So it pretty much looks like this at the moment. Simon said, my DI is a little bit more complicated than your current implementation because I have separated client-side services from those used on server side and common ones. If you're using Blazor Wasm, it's an issue you'll hit yourself at some point. I do have that, but I'm only testing my server-side implementations at the moment. So here are my, where's shared client? Here are my client-side implementations, which are going to be HTTP requests only. And since they're only going to be HTTP requests, I was like, I don't really want to test HTTP requests. Like the thing that I would test on this, on the client-side implementation, is when a HTTP request fails with various status codes. Is this thing handling that failure correctly? But the way that I do that is I push... If that's going to be hard for me to defend, but if there is a failure in the HTTP request for this service, I'm going to try to handle it as close to the UI as possible, the place where I'm actually going to display the message. But that might mean bubbling up the error, and I don't want to do that. I kind of want to handle it here. Dang it. Probably do want to write tests for these. Simon said, I find myself mocking the external dependencies of a given CQRS command or query and defining that as the logical unit. And hello, the realm. Fair, I tend to do a more solitary approach. Oh, I can't work out if these are unit or integration. I never use DI in unit tests as every dependency is mocked. I mean, you kind of, like, since the dependency is mocked, doesn't that mean that you kind of have to do the dependency set up your dependency injection container for the test with the mocked implementations? And I wouldn't say that so like the unit test here that I'm working on, I've already lost it. Is the deposit services get transaction data method. And so I don't want to mock the get transaction method. I want to use the implemented library. Speaking of, what happened to all of my... I lost all of my services.add. That's probably one thing that was confusing. So like what you're saying is instead of doing DI like this, you would, in your arrange step, let me actually put in the... Okay, so instead of adding this to your services collection up here, in your arrange step, you would do something like var deposits service equals new, this thing. And then you would also provide anything that this thing needs, like an IDB context factory. And hello, Captain Commerce. Thank you for the lurk. Thank you for the lurk. Appreciate you. I also have an example of using Respawn to reset a SQL DB for full stack integration test if you need that. Most likely. Yep. I will. In essence, but would use reflection to do it for me. You would use reflection? Whoa. Yeah, so then what you're doing is you're using this dictionary here then as your dependency injection container. Like for me, it seems that it would be a lot easier to use this approach where you're creating your own services collection. And then you're adding all of your services up front, like maybe in a setup class. Just inherit from that, make T the class you're testing, and it will build it for you. Only need to call 2 or 3 things you're testing. So, okay, here would be the example again then. Let's say that I give it transaction entry service as my, or sorry, it would be transaction entry service of deposit view model. But let's say that that is my generic, that is my T. T. That is my, this isn't it. That is my T here. How would it build my dependency chain for my IDB context factory? Like, I think this is a really important discussion to have. Then call mock of TE and pass in the IDB context factory, only if method you're testing is using it. Otherwise, it will default to null. And I guess then how would I pass in the DB context factory? So I've never manually instantiated a DB context factory and done the setup for that. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Do I have the latest copy up? I don't. Updated. What did you do in here? Why did you touch these? Oh, I gave it as an example. So that's not a thing. Added first interface, service interface, and client and server implementations. without implementing the methods. Started setting up service test. Okay, so I'll push that, and you can find it on the GitHub page. I've already made a change. And it's in the setup transaction service branch, by the way. So when you go there, make sure to switch to setup transaction service to see the latest of where we're at. And my structure just has .tests because I didn't put these in separate folders. Otherwise, there would be a test folder with finandman.test project. Redundant. So, I mean, I'm getting two really good recommendations. One of them that I understand, and I kind of want to move forward on because I understand it, but one of them that also sounds like in the long run it would be less work. So it looks like the abstract class would be the extension, not extension, but the class that I would inherit when creating my test. So in short, that could be something like, let's just say I put it in helpers. Now you, context of T. Oh, I wanted this so that I could just copy. Oh my goodness. These emails. And is this using actually is sorry, is this actually using mock? Is that what I saw? Mock. So I do want to install mock anyway. I was planning on installing mock for at minimum the data mocking, entity framework mocking. I was just trying to understand this to see if maybe I do understand it. I did the same thing with the base class for my integration tests. Should this be nullable? This would not be nullable though, unless resolve returns a nullable. Maybe you are nullable. It's quite old. Yeah, no worries. No worries. I just like making all of the green squigglies go away. That's all. Okay, so create instance returns a nullable object. So that would be good. And same for you. Okay. Ultimately, you will have common tests set up and mocking code needed where you put. That is just personal preference, either base class or extension methods or test data builder helpers, it matters little provided you come up with a design and apply it consistently. And that's what I'm trying to do right now, is come up with one approach and follow it. The first thing that I wanted to start with was mocking the data, mocking my context, my DB context, but we went in the direction of mocking the actual services and dependency injection, everything to do with dependency injection. And I'm completely okay with that, absolutely, because it all needs to get done. I just want to be consistent with it as well. So resolve does give back possibly null. Is this ever used in a nullable kind of way? Yes. So it's possible that this mock here, no, it's not. This mock here will definitely not be null by the time we get here. I solved that by adding a layer of abstraction in the form of a repository pattern because mocking EF is a right, pig. That's a statement. I was thinking that it wouldn't be too difficult for this database. I would just have a whole bunch of list of data and then use an in-memory database and then restore it. Because I'm not really worried about the functionality for adding and removing transactions. I'm worried about being able to retrieve data. Well, I mean, like, making sure that the process for creating a new transaction for the database, and by transaction, I mean financial transaction record. I'd like to look at Steve Ardalis's specifications package. Cool. So this is a recommended one for EF mocking. So let's add that. Browse. Yeah, I'm not the biggest fan of the repository pattern. And it's primarily for, how long was I missing the closing parentheses? It's primarily because I usually like to group my operations by domain and, oh my goodness. Mark is red. Not going. What day is it today? The 14th? What are you asking for? What do you even... Oh my gosh. Sorry. I'm trying to keep on top of my work email. Since I am mostly focused on their stuffs. All of their stuffs right now. Okay, moving on. Let's go. Let's do the thing. You know what the thing is? Because I sure don't. We're still talking setting up our dependency injection container. So if I were to do this, then I really am only... Yeah, I don't know what to put in here. Not gonna lie. This would implement my abstract helper class called class context of, and let's say it is only the transaction entry service. So this would only be deposit transaction entry service tests. Oh man. So before mocking the database then, if you're still around, can you give me some pointers on how to get started with testing this first method called deposit service, which is going to be the thing that we are testing, dot get transaction data? Or point me to an example, I guess, if you don't want to talk me through it. Just think of it as a DB context. The thing that I do with DB, and yes, live coding. The thing that I can do, or the thing that I do with DB context factory is for my service implementations, there may be instances where I will early exit from the method before needing the DB context. So instead, I dependency inject a DB context factory. So I showed this yesterday, but if validate the model, if validation fails, then early exit. Otherwise, other slices do var context equals await db context factory create db context async. And so now is when it instantiates the db context, as opposed to always passing in a db context even if it's not going to be used. Yeah, similar to a HTTP client factory. Yep. Okay, so let me hop into and Discord voice channel, set this thing up. For outputting audio through the stream. Because I can use, I will take all the help you offer. I will go into this room here. And so live coding, if you just hop into there. Perfect.
Hey,
Hello. Let me make sure we got you equalized.
I will
Which
say
means,
words I think
yes,
I'm going to
that.
be speaking at this
Good.
volume most of the time.
Okay. You are perfect then.
Okay. All right. I'll be super quick. So
Absolutely. Yeah, I don't
just
want to take
super
that much
quick.
of your time either.
Yeah, I am at work. Hey, y'all. I'm at work. I need to get back to it. But I saw, look at your screen.
Yeah.
So, hey, a small note about the lazy initialized DB context factory.
hmm
There is a .NET type lazy of T, and you can inject a lazy of T.
Where
Lazy
T
of
is DB
your
context
Yep. And it will not actually create one. Well,
until
that
it's
was with the
being
Lamar.
used.
Yeah. And that's how we avoided we had some I think anyway, the point is like we avoided connecting to our RabbitMQ until we actually needed it
Oh, cool.
by doing a lazy of T injection, but we were using some custom container that wasn't the default .NET one. But just keep that in mind. I'm not
Yeah, yeah.
saying
Terrence says I love using
okay.
lazy FT stuff. Yeah, I think DB context factory makes sense for this one, but like if anything else doesn't have a factory, then lazy FT would probably be a really good approach for that one.
Yeah. Um Yeah, and it does. I haven't tested it. We used what was it, Lamar from Jeremy Miller, so it had support for that. And I don't know. You just have to make sure your container supports it. Otherwise, it doesn't help at all.
Yeah.
Haha.
I'll write
Anyway,
it down.
uh,
On
so
this thingy over here, go to the bottom, use lazy of T, and Tyron is saying when or in
it does work. So Simon Gearing, which I will call you Simon Engineering.
yes. That's what I keep saying.
Simon's
He
Engineering.
hasn't
I'm just kidding.
complained yet, so when you use it the first time, call the dot value property to get the actual thing. It's a lot like a dependency injection in IOptions, and then you
Yeah.
call dot value to actually get the instantiated or the current values kind of thing. Elmo shrug. Okay, so I am listening to you. So the only thing that there are two things that you can choose from. I don't know what you were planning on, but I want to mock the data for the DB context and set up my first test. Like I'm using this dependency injection approach where you set up the services and then the service provider grab the dependency injected iTransaction service um,
Okay.
and DB
So
context factory and all that.
I'm this is gonna be so quick because I wish I could just point you at something that says here's how I do it or here's a repo, but I am aware that what I'm about to say is too controversial and crazy. But here we
Okay.
go. Your entire application is the unit. And it's great that you're living in the entity framework, Nirvana land, where you don't have to deal with a real database, because that means your integration tests can be fast.
hmm
So what I'm saying is like how do you get transaction data in your system? Like from the outside, what's the UI?
We haven't really done any of it yet, or I guess we mocked it up, but
Or
it's just a form. You fill it out, push add or push submit.
so what happens when you push submit? Where's the code that submits it?
That is what we are TDDing,
Okay.
and it
And
is
this
this
is
deposit data entry dot add transaction, which will show up on your screen in another 30 seconds.
no. Hey, iOS got better, so I'm
Oh,
only a few seconds behind now. Thank
awesome.
you. Thank you. And it anyway, whatever. Okay, so it's not there, so uh yeah, I so here's the whole theory. So you write your test with the setup, the arrange part of it being
Uh-huh.
called this method.
Right.
It sounds crazy, just go with it. So this is the arrange part is calls add transaction data, and you pass in some data. And then the act, that's good too. Sorry, your get transaction data on line 38 is perfect.
Well,
It was
yeah.
in the act section.
Okay. But this would
And
be the
then,
same as the add-ish. So let's go to the add then, real quick. Because that's the one you were talking about.
oh,
That's
that's
the one
what
that
you're saying.
pointed
That's
out.
why you're copying.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was saying just leave that. So this is my take. Now I know it's crazy. I am aware. I've had many discussions. I've had someone tell me to my face that a unit, the unit and unit test is a class. I told them he was wrong and I was enlightened. Um, so just keep that in mind. I'm aware. I've had many of these discussions. But so you don't have to take it is what I'm getting at.
Cool. And then I would populate this with some stuff. So you're saying in my arrange, I'm creating the model that I want to add, as well as calling add transaction.
What am I saying? I'm saying, yeah, like that. If that is how that works. Okay. And so
Yeah.
this,
So this is filling it out in the form, and this is sending it to the service to be added to the database.
and in theory, and this is your in-memory entity framework database, so
Yeah.
it should
Let's
be
say it
quick.
is.
And if it isn't, by the way, that's okay too. It just makes your test super slow, and people stop running them all. But they're actually really useful tests. So then your act, this is where it gets a little tricky. Where what are we testing? We're at testing add deposit works. I'm sorry, I just
Yes.
read the
Add
name of your
deposit.
test.
Yep. Yep.
So I'm sorry. So line 65 is in fact in the act block.
Right.
So
So maybe what you were telling me was in my arrange step for the get, I'm doing a whole bunch of adds and then calling a get. Is that where you were maybe heading to?
yes, yeah. So
Okay.
and it kind of gets a little weird because you kind of have to
Yeah.
bootstrap your way into a position of I need the add to work before I can
Exactly.
test the
Yeah.
get,
Right.
and then I don't know if the add works until
And that's why I hear that
it's
this
somehow
is
verified.
not a good approach because now you have two units of work in the same thing. One is the add transaction, but if you're saying the whole entire application is one unit, then this makes sense to do this way.
Uh, well, and I'm just saying the tests are useful. This is what this is all.
Right.
This is my argument. Again, it's crazy. I'm aware, but I do think, especially with CRUD heavy apps, especially with the CRUD heavy, there's
Mhm.
not much stuff happening, and most of the verifying is just did I put the data in the right place? Are my EF mappings correct?
Right. Yep.
Are my
That's the big
EF
one
queries correct?
is so this essentially DTO being turned into the database entity and then getting uploaded to the database and giving us an ID back.
So then the assert part of this one, I like, and this is again where people think I'm crazy. Like, I will validate every single part that
Oh,
thing
yeah.
coming
And
out
I've heard
of the
assert
get.
really should just be one
It's a
one major
logical.
assertion. Yeah.
It's a logical assertion. There you go.
Right.
But they also, by the way, and I will also say why a single logical assertion is nice. But the essence of having one test per logical assertion is that you can trace where something goes wrong.
Mhm.
I will also say if you want to completely blow up um, this testing style, you can have one test class and put the arrange and act sections in the is it the constructor?
Right. I've heard that one.
And then put a bunch of single line fact statements that just assert one. It's literally like one line fact. Here is a
Yeah,
fact
I
that
kind of
this
would like
assertion.
that for these
Just
three.
you can try it out. I don't know how I went from like learning how to do in unit and then we went into these crazy specification
Mhm.
frameworks and we got crazy with our test styles and now I'm back to just arrange act assert. and
All
you get all the value out of it.
right.
It's kind of like simple, but it's also like maybe too simple. Enjoy what you enjoy. I don't think it's
Oh
harmful.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Okay.
And I
So
appreciate that.
anyway, my whole point, and once I hang up, I will put the stream back on mute, and you can just pretend that we never had this discussion, and that's okay.
I'm
But this is my
absorbing all of
style.
this information at least and integrating
Yeah,
it into what I'm going to decide to do in the end.
yeah, yeah. And that is all I ask, and you did hear me out. And
Yeah,
yeah, yeah. So test the database or test your mapping with the database. And these are not necessarily unit tests. I do actually just call them integration tests because they are so wide branching. I will also say, by the way, we kind of to make these things usable, you are going to have the largest setup blocks in the
yeah,
world in these tests.
exactly. Hmm.
So what I end up doing, there were lots of discussions in the early days about like object mothers and test data builders, and they were very fancy, like, oh, make a whole class to build up a single entity.
Right.
All you need to do is either you just use C sharp. Like I make a helper method. In your case, it would be like, what is it? Create.
Generate the transaction data,
Yeah,
something like that.
yeah. And start with the first one. Just has no arguments. It just here's the one I needed for the one test. And then when you have a second test that needs something slightly different, you pass in a single optional parameter, and that's it.
So that's what this was
Eh,
going to be for.
Oh, okay. Yeah, and I mean, and there's various things, like they call them object mothers, and I think object mothers literally have no parameters, so they technically, it's just whatever. It's all helper methods.
Hmm.
There's a guy who streams, and I will chat his name, Jitter
Yeah,
Ted.
absolutely.
He
You can
does,
even say it out loud. Jitter Ted.
yeah, yeah, yeah. There we go. I will, anyway, he still does TDD stuff on stream, and I check out his Java style
Ooh.
TDD, and they don't have all the language features in Java. So I've asked him like, why don't y'all just use like methods? And he has all these complex test builders. Anyway, just ignore everything I've said
I will not ignore it
and
though. I'm going to
see.
consider it and then see what we decide.
You're, it's gonna be so much better. The tests are
Yeah.
gonna be so much better. And I'm whispering because it's just between us.
No one else
I
can
need to
hear. I
blog this.
promise.
I have only a few blog posts in my queue, and I will blog about
Oh
it, and then
yeah.
I'll make everyone read it. I'll make everyone read it on stream one day. So,
I definitely will. Regardless of whether I agree with everything in it, I'd read it out loud.
okay. All right. You've heard me out, and I thank you.
Yep.
And as you were. All
Thank you.
right. Later. Back to it.
Back to it. Live coding, everyone. Good feedback. Good information. So Ted is top bloke. Highly recommend his stream. Yeah, I just followed. So next time I see him online, I will watch for sure. No, it wasn't Community Day protesting. Live Coding just hopped on to give us a hot take, as he likes to call them, on setting up the testing. So right now we're talking about mocking the data and the dependency injection and all of that stuff. What did live coding say? Can you start from the beginning? Guess what? This is going to be posted on YouTube 24 hours after today's stream. So if you missed anything of what live coding talked about, you will have the opportunity to see it again. And immediately after the stream, the VOD will be available on Twitch. So yeah, I would recommend that. But there were a lot of good bits of information that he gave that I was agreeing with and also not agreeing with. So putting other method calls from the service that from the class that you're trying to test in another one of the tests, I'm not a fan of that. I'd rather have another helper that gives us some data that we can work with. So maybe the thing that we're supposed to be getting back from this is our DB context. I've gotten a client that needs a dashboard. I'm going to use Blazor WebAssembly for it since size is not a problem. Yay! Really, really happy to hear that you're going to go give Blazor another try. There were some comments that came in while I was talking with live coding. The realm. So I don't think I wrote that down either. I'm a terrible person. Um, Let me see if I wrote it down. No. I need to write down whether you go by Realm or if you go by the real MKB. I can't remember. I'm terrible at this. And you've been around for a million years. And you're active, and it just makes it. Anyway. The Realm. The real. So he goes by all of them. Cool. I'm going to call you the Realm. Okay. So he said, I'm mocking context if it returns in a setup, then mocking a list for that context DB set to be and ensuring on add it will be there. Similar to iHTTP client factory. I might have to pinch that. Oh, Simon said, the benefit of the repository for me was I'm not certain I'll end up on SQL Server in the long term, whereas I know I'll be using SQL Server for this, but yeah. Similar, oh, and then similar to HTTP Client Factory was talking about using an IDB context factory, and then I might have to pinch that, meaning I think I like that. So I don't remember where I got that from, but I did get it from many, many sources. The view models you're projecting, you using AutoMapper for that. So right now I haven't decided to go with AutoMapper. I have used AutoMapper before and I like it and I don't like it, but I also like it. I still prefer using extension methods for to entity model or to view model. But there is a lot of stuff that you can do with AutoMapper. Let's go with Orme Water. Orme Water, just to show some of that. I'll keep reading the rest of these though. Tyron was here. Tyron said a whole bunch of cool stuff. He's like, yeah, I love using lazy of T stuff. And the first time you access it, it does the instantiation or getting the existing one if it's scoped or singleton. But you just use a dot value property. And it also, so Simon said, it also works with the default Microsoft dependency injection. And we just got to follow. Thank you so much, Il Pajo. For the follow. And then calling Simon Engineering. Simon Engineering. He's like, shrugs. Are you about to suggest social unit testing from VM all the way back to the DAL? Mock in a oneer. Act will be a VM action. Fluent assertions for the win. What are fluent assertions? So I know what fluent validation is, and I know what fluent API is, but I don't think I've heard of fluent assertions. Is that another library that helps you to write assertions? The BDD Gherkin rebound, and that was when live coding was talking about the actor range and or when he was talking about the assert step with having multiple asserts. Oh, this is Army of Water. And if you want an example of Fluent Test Builder, I have one in my code base as well. Ted is top bloke, highly recommend. Thank you, Simon. I will be looking at that closer then. Maybe I just need to do some studying on it before tomorrow's stream so that we can really, really work through this. And then the realm gave us a comment, pull request. I am not seeing anything that I'm angry about with it. So let's grab it. Let's go ahead and pull in this pull request. I'll have to merge some changes for this file. Yeah, I don't know how I missed those extra parentheses. Thank you for putting them in there. I'm sure you saw them when you were like, this isn't building. Cool. Yeah, and I was thinking of finding a library that can generate generic data based on the property types. That'd be a cool thing to find. But yeah, I do like this, so I approve. Let's do a pull request and merge into. Wait, you're saying throw this away? Do you just want me to copy paste? Oh, no, that's fine. I can just copy paste. Yeah, I'll copy paste. But I did like those changes. I just thought it would be easier to just merge because I'm lazy like that. Let's get back to the sample. Let's see if we can see the code again. Show all code. How do we see the code again? Once it's viewed, there. Or once it's approved. All right, so we need to add. We needed to add. Oh my goodness, where did the CS proj file go? Was it at the very bottom? Yeah, here we are. So we needed to add mock and mock queryable, which I did. Cool. And then here's a bunch of. Oh, you're just commenting out my original. That's fine. And then this would be an example of a private helper. There's a resolve. Mockup T. Oh, but I would have all of this stuff from the. So there's additional stuff that you added to it? So much green. Must resist merge. All right, let's look at this setup step then. There isn't a setup step. Oh, okay. Yeah, so all of this down here was your was the abstract class that I already stole from you. Okay. I'm gonna go ahead and recopy down to here. Where's the app? Where's the project? Okay, now there's a lot of. Let me catch up on chat so that I can scroll down and see live chat. Might be reusable even if you don't go with base class. I do like the base class. I'm starting to understand it more now. I think something clicked that was processing in the back of my mind while live coding was telling us about his approach or thoughts. We talked about prog testing's new client. Awesome stuff. I'm glad you're going Blazor. Still am. You can get Blazor WebAssembly fairly reasonable size with .NET Tree shaken. And then prog testing just said no. I'm gonna just I am just going to call about 30 APIs for this dashboard. I don't even think I need a database. That's cool. I agree. I dislike AutoMapper. Find it saves 5 minutes in the beginning, cost you 2 hours later. Yeah, I want to show you my most recent implementation of AutoMapper stuff and some cool stuff that Nick, the first one, had given us. And Jim is here. Hello, Jim. Um, and Simon said, I have an interesting implementation using default interface to set up app map it, if that helps. You can add imap from of t and get a default mapping or implement the interface to customize the mapping. What I was thinking is we could try to find some kind of code generator or try to learn how to do code generators. I glanced at that. And so we would add an attribute to a class that says mapper4 or something like that. And then the of t class, and then maybe have some extra mapping information in there. I don't know. And then it'll generate the code for us so that we can get all the methods and everything. Anyway, see my test scenarios in my validation or service tests for fluent assertions. Okay, I will write that down. Look at Simon's GitHub test assertions in validation or service tests for fluent assertions. Noted. And then I need to get your GitHub again. Admin assistant. All right, Jim is like, did you do the Blazing Pizza Blazor workshop when you first started learning Blazor? Yeah, that was one of the, nope, that was the first tutorial thing that I went through for Blazor. Absolutely. And I think it was .NET 3, .NET 2.2, where WASM was still, what's the word I'm looking for? Preview. And then just kept going. You really don't have to post it multiple times. I promise. I will read chat. You can merge if you want. I mean, can always revert. Beauty of Git. Yep, I do love that. And then the realm said it's an example, so all in one file would usually put the class context in a separate, and it is in a separate file currently, just so you know. So I'll just copy it into that file. The trouble, Simon says, the trouble with a lot of the Blazor example from Microsoft is they use too much code in the Blazor when it works great with MVVM. What is the point in not pulling UI logic up in a way that works with multiple UI platforms? It's kind of what the Realm said. It's an example. With examples, usually put all the code in one file to make it easier to find all of the code, and then you make the decision on how to split it up, which is kind of annoying because it's like, when a new person comes to do a tutorial and sees that this is their recommendation, it's like, all right, I'm putting all of my logic in a component. That's the recommendation. It's like, no, it's just an example so that you can see all of the code in one file. No worries, Jim. And then Simon said, definitely going back and forward on AutoMapper, but then I'm also going back and forth on if I really want separation of DTO from request response objects to EF entities, or I'd rather break all the rules and simply that to a single class, unless I need to make them different rather than preemptively doing so. Okay, so that is a tough one for me because I'm calling them view models, and that's probably offending a lot of people. I've had a lot of arguments, and again, I rarely use the term argument to mean something bad. Discussion, I guess, is the better word. I've had some discussions with people on calling all of my classes model or view model when some of them are DTOs. None of them are really view models. but all of them are view models because they're all used to drive the content of a component or something, and they're displaying the data in that form. But there are many instances, like for example in this database, where my view model is going to be, it's going to look almost exactly like the actual entity. DTO is a data transfer object, so it's what you would use when you're getting data from the database and sending it to something that may be called an API endpoint. So instead of sending the actual database record, the model for the database record, which is what the entity is, then you are instead sending a model of that is specific to your application that doesn't have all of the fields or maybe combines things. So like my account here has a list of no, let's do transaction. My transaction here has a list of transaction detail. And so maybe I would want to only send the top level transaction information and not even have these available in the model that I send back. Or maybe I send back only the account. So I make a view model that is, only deposit transactions. And I make a view model that is payment transactions only. Then I would have separate view models for those or separate data transfer objects for those. So Simon said, I like to define view model as having iCommand methods and iNotify property change properties. Most of mine don't. The things that have that are my state classes, and the state classes are usually the ones that, they're the ones that manage any of my cached view models, cached data that will be used in view models. Yeah, and the Microsoft MVVM toolkit is great for that. I haven't used it very much, but I think it is great for it. So new folks by definition don't have the experience to know it's just an example in bad practice. Yeah, I agree. Okay, so let's look at two things real quick. The first one is my usage of AutoMapper. So this is what my auto mapping profiles file ended up looking like for this specific application. There are a lot of mappings. A lot of mappings. Oh, I know which one I wanted to do. It was RMA chain of custody. And so what would have happened if I didn't configure it the way that I configured it, and thank you so much, Coco, for the follow. Welcome into the Daily Code Fun. Holy map. Yeah, like a lot of these are because the property names were different, and so I needed to say map casing depth in my view model to casing depth from the this is a view, but a database view in this case. And then there were some differences. Gosh, I'm losing my words. It's going away. So what I would prefer to do is exactly what Simon just typed out, which is if it ends up like this, you might as well do extension methods. But there was this really cool technique that we ended up using for AutoMapper, and that is to say, oh, right. Well, in this case, it was compile mappings up front. Because what was happening is when I started the app, the page would load, and it would still be trying to do the AutoMapper compilings because the home page was the first place that the AutoMapper was used. And so it threw off pretty much the orchestration between the JavaScript stuff that was needed. So this main front page looks like, You got this. Okay, it looks like this. And so because there's some JavaScript happening asynchronously behind the scenes to load this map, as well as to load the data, and this data here, I think, might have been one of the things that needed AutoMapper to generate to go from the database record to this list of layer data, whatever it's called. And so I used AutoMapper for that. When the application first loaded, this thing would be trying to run and the JavaScript thing, and they had kind of this. I don't really remember. This was like a year ago, maybe a year and a half ago by now. But I think there. Oh, crap. I'm out of water. I think there was something to do with a race condition where if the AutoMapper was compiling and then it finished compiling, then the JavaScript stuff didn't load, or if the map loaded and it was trying to prepare data to be moved up here and AutoMapper wasn't ready yet, then it caused errors, and it was all over the place. But the other one that I want to point out was this application called Chain of Custody. And this one was even harder because it's a data entry form, and there are multiple view models that are being used in this data entry form on top of each other with a very nested AutoMapper thing. But there are a million mapping profiles set for this one too. So when this page loaded, it would be unresponsive for about 4 to 5 seconds before the user could actually even interact with the menu on the left or just do anything on this page. So the technique that we used, one of them was to map or to compile the mappings up front on application load. That would happen once ever. And then it would use all of the same mapping profiles. The other one was in chain of custody. The luxury of a personal project is the privilege of being able to make everything fit a conversation, since one controls everything as the sole dev and the sole customer. Yeah, except that these apps that I'm showing off were for the place that I used to work. And I am semi-helping out with. So I made myself available to the current dev that's there. So that's why I say I'm semi-helping with it. But I've mostly taken my hands off of it. AutoMapper. Let's go with a server service. COC records. Mapper. No. Am I not really using Mapper in this project anymore? Oh, it would be on the client side. Anyway. Main page. I don't even see that I'm using. Oh, that's what it was. Each component had an instance of Mapper. No, not even that. I can't remember where it is. But there was this really cool way that you could essentially delay the mapping profile and then cache it after first use so it wouldn't have to regenerate and recompile. If that's real data, you probably don't want to share it. Oh, this is from like 1864, so it's fine. This has been on the stream like 80 million times while I was working on it. So I used to stream my entire day of work when I worked at the Rocky Mountain Arsenal. The ROM is still providing updates to this. That's fun. All right, so then the second thing that I wanted to do, now that I'm talking about the ROM, is recopy this just to make sure that I have the copy that he included in his sample. So let's close this. And Deflux is here. Hello, Deflux. Deflux, Deflux. But yeah, took us off. I'm out of water. And it would take me too long to go get water right now. Water. Water. So class context. This is the fail. Oh, right. But I already went through and cleaned up the... Maybe I can do a local setup abstract test class context local commit, and then if I pasta, then I can just find out what's different. All right, so it looks like it is exactly the same file, just without the nullables. So I like that. So I'll undo those. I'm also out of, I mean, I've also had my last coffee for the day. Oh, good times. If you refresh the PR, I tidied it up a bit and added examples for callback. Drink a coffee. Review. Wait, refresh. Yeah, maybe I don't. Maybe I don't know how to refresh it. What if I don't actually know how to refresh the PR? Eight minutes ago. Okay, so yes, it refreshed. Deflex was saying, any data you see in this stream will be dummy data. Dumby data. It's all good. All good. Last thing we'd want is anyone get in trouble just trying to help folks learn. Then Deflex said that was until you started to fall asleep at work. I never fell asleep at work. Ever? Oh man, I cannot find it. Oh, you had a clip that you took where it looked like I was sleeping. I kind of remember it. I kind of remember it. Okay, so here are some samples. So we would get rid of the entire constructor inside of the test service class. So this one here, this goes away, and a sample test would be ensure with verify great if you only need test a few things. What? What kind of method name is that? The kind that I can learn from. Oops, I pushed the wrong direction. All right, this would be from our database table. This is from entity framework or link, that's what I said. And this is from our support class or mock. Okay, so let's review this sample that he gave us, and I really appreciate this. Oh, after I read Deflux's messages, I can't find it. I clipped you waking up at work. For some reason, the clip of you announcing your switch to OnlyFans got more views. I don't remember that one. I remember the falling asleep one, but I don't remember the one where I said I'm gonna. Okay, I like this. DB context setup create DB returns async mock DB would normally pass the DB context, not IDB. So this wouldn't be required. Would move to static function. Not sure how. Yeah, but we'll still figure it out. I know we will. I'm gonna put the comments above just because it's easier for me to read that way. Pasta. Okay, we'll figure out how to do this. Public static get mock DB context as messy all-in-one test run as its example. No worries, no worries. So this would go. Oh, so this is I wouldn't. Wait. Instead of. Okay. All right. I'm trying to read through this. I can understand it. I know I can. Okay. So we would mock IDB context factory somehow. So this here would need to be. So this mock DB would come from DB context. Whoa. Huh? I'm kind of confused by this part. No, you're okay. I can definitely uh, pick through it and ask questions. Words are escaping me. My English is not very good, even though I am English and native speaker. So this example works if you take the service code for add transaction data. Okay. So there's supposed to be some add transaction data code. Oh, yeah, that's my service under test. Got it. Well, let me see what else you added really quick just to see if maybe there's some helpers that I'm forgetting. No, there aren't. Okay. I'll also grab this test just because it's the only other one that I don't have in my code. Otherwise, I've pretty much taken all of the code that you put in here. Oh, okay. Wait, no, I'm not sure what happened here. Start record. Is it just a formatting thing? I think that's just a formatting thing. Ah, okay. So here is the yeah, I don't want to do any implementations. I want it to fail. So I thought that you were saying that in order for this test to actually be allowed, I would need some code from up here, but I don't. So that's fine. That's okay. We do, actually. So you put a comment in here real quick that was obviously this is not really doubt you create DB context on every call, etc. Not even model you want, but this is the given idea. You do call this on every call. So when the server-side service is invoked, this add transaction data will do db context.create db context async. This is where it will only create a db context if we get to this point, or reuse an existing db context if it has one available that it can use here. So that's the beauty of db context factory. So yes, this happens on every single method. I was able to clip the why not the when. I'm trying to get this done, but yeah, okay. We'll look at this. You won't be able to hear it though. Oh yeah, this one. I don't like programming. The one time you really scared me when we had to call an ambulance from you laughing so hard, that stream was scary. It's okay, you keep doing your work. I shouldn't interrupt. No, you're good. You're good. This is it's not a working stream. It's have fun with whatever. I'm just trying to understand this, and kind of caught me in the middle of being confused, and yeah, I'm like, I just want to finish this, and having 12 minutes left. But all good. You can definitely interrupt. You can definitely keep posting videos. Let's get this one with audio because I have no idea what this is. Firefox. Post. Back to the beginning. When you're overloaded by funness. See the pinky? I did the pinky.
Well, that's fun.
Yeah, so yeah, you really like to grab me on days that I don't want to remember. I am pretty sure I remember what that day was, and I am not really excited to remember it, and it kind of puts me in a mood. But that's okay. That's fun. Good times. And we just got a new follower from that. Thank you so much, Double-Edged Jord. Or is it Jord? Yeah, I'm just trying to understand this real quick. Not that. Not that. I was trying to copy this. Oh my goodness, that's a lot of emails. What do you do in the realm? Also fact. Okay. So I was trying to understand this. Yeah. What project am I working on? So it's not that big of a project. Here is the link to it. But we are working on a financial management tracking application, and we're just doing it for the stream. So, really quick summary of how everything went. I used to work at a place where I was able to stream my entire day, so a normal 8-hour day, and I streamed all of the work that I did. And we all got used to that, but I got a new job and I'm not able to stream the actual work that I do for this new job, but I still wanted to keep streaming and keep this community going. And one of the things that I decided was let's keep going with Blazor. So let's do a full stack um, project where we can do the entire process from conceptualize and design, implement, make sure we have testing in this implementation, deploy. So the steps that we've done so far are that we have set up the main repo for this, put together some information about what this application is, what it should do. Then we did some design on a whiteboard where I hand wrote a whole bunch of ideas and stuff, maybe, not maybe, and then I drew out the database design, some screens, just sketched, pen and paper kind of stuff. And then we came up with a few designs for what the landing page would look like to maybe get a feel for what the rest of the application would look and feel like. And yeah, and so that's where we're at. So we finished, oh, right. And then we finished implementing the first few screens in the application, which I think is going to let us build. Yeah, and the thing is, I'm not a designer and I'm not familiar with writing tests. And those are two areas that I wanted to gain more skill in, as well as have everyone, we're all learning this together. So provide my any insights that I might have or any lessons that I'm learning, and then get a whole bunch of thoughts and ideas from all of you. All right, Teal. Let me revert that back really quick. I was showing how I would normally apply different themes. UI. UI. SAS. Color variables. Actually, it's in root. You are not teal. Oh, crap. Now I don't know what color we were using for primary text color. I'll say it was F0, F3, F0. That's a little bright, but we'll go with it. We'll say that that's the color that I was using this whole time. I'm sure I can go back to a previous video and remember. So anyway, this is our main landing page. We kind of sketched it out. This is not a real login form or anything like that. We aren't going to add identity for some time because I don't want to complicate it with that. Instead, we're just sketching out all of the pages and some of the basic functionality, like when you're adding a new line item. So this, being a financial management tracker, it's pretty much you're entering transactions that you have completed. So I paid for a thing on 8/29/2022 to Wendy's. That's what I said. And I'm adding in that there was a subtotal of $32 with a sales tax of $1.24. And it's doing the totaling down here. We're leaving room for internationalization and localization. So all of the content on here is provided using localizer. iString localizer, which is part of Microsoft's localization library, so that we can, if we wanted to, send all of these to get translated so that we can switch languages, and then it'll give us the correct localized text to be displayed, along with having these dates be displayed in the right format depending on country. Same thing with money. We implemented this it's not even quick grid, it's just a table that has clickable headers that you can sort by clicking on the header, open a context menu type thing to do things like change sorting. We haven't implemented filter or clear filter or anything like that yet, but it's all there. It's just kind of sketched out, kind of skeleton. So we did that for the payment detail screen, the deposit screen, and the transfers. And so now what I'm doing is I wanted to set up some of our backend processes. And before doing our backend process, I want to set up tests for them. So we are going to use the approach where we have a service interface that says, these are the things that a transaction entry service can do. And this is what it looks like when it is, oh, that's all the way over there. This is what it looks like when we are doing it from the client side, which is everything is not implemented. And this is what this transaction service can do when we're doing it on the server side. So this is the one that does all of the database, saving the data to the database, getting the data from the database. The client side is just do an API request to some endpoint that says, call the server-side service to get the data and everything like that. So the reason all of these say not implemented is because we're trying to write tests somewhere in here for doing things like do all of my deposit transactions. So for example, let me get my phone. For example, when we want to test the add transaction, does not fail, or add transaction adds a new item to the database that wasn't there before, we will be able to verify that these things work. And then the very first thing that should happen is these tests should fail until we implement the test, the method in here. So again, all of this stuff, everything from this test class to the help that everyone has been giving me in chat today is brand new. I can't say brand new. I did a little bit of this, but it's still relatively new to me, and I don't know the best methodology, or not even the best methodology. I don't know any approaches. I'm familiar with a couple, like I've heard of them, but I wouldn't be able to come up with them on my own without doing tons of research. So I've been getting a lot of input from everyone in chat, and I'm really, really grateful for it. But this is the most recent approach for doing the unit testing for those methods in the deposit entry view model version. So deposit transactions. Ooh, I said it all. I can't believe I got it out there. We do have a Discord. Thank you, Dukasoft. Let me read your statements. So the designs look clean. I appreciate that. They aren't translating very well yet. I really like this neumorphic design, except for the landing page. These don't feel like they should be these physical kind of sticking off of this surface kind of thing. So we went with this dark-ish design. I want to change the colors. I want to change the text on here. Lots and lots of decisions to make with how to lay it out. Over here, I'm going to put a placeholder for this so that I can stop thinking that it's just empty space. But I'd like to have the account information, account overview information on this side that tells me all of the accounts that I've tracked and what their current balances are. Words. And then maybe some quick actions for them. So Double Edge said, man, I'd have no idea where to start with this stuff. I work in dev, but skill-wise, I'm only just past the basic tutorial stage. No worries at all. Just like Dukasoft said, you'll get there. Are you enjoying it by chance? Are you having fun with what you're doing? Or does it only feel like work? Does it only feel like I don't really want to do this? I'm just interested. There is no wrong answer to that question. Simon said, Jitter Ted mentioned earlier is a great stream for teaching TDD philosophy and approach. He has helped me convince me to be more strict with myself in my approach to TDD, and it's helpful, yeah. And that's why we're kind of still going slow. Hello, Thindle, nice timing. Right, remember to enjoy the learning. So I enjoy it, to be fair, though it is hard to find time outside of work. I struggle to make it a hobby. Awesome. Nice timing, bad timing, because I'm about to end my stream. I need to get back to studying for the certification exam. And yeah, it's oof. I'm also hungry. But yeah, yes. Too many words trying to come out of my mouth at the same time. I want to answer all of Double Edged, or give information to Double Edge about just this entire thing. So feel free to hang out with our community. I stream every day. I'm going to go to this screen while I tell you this. I stream every day at around 10:30 a.m. Mountain Daylight Time. And it is currently 1832 UTC. So I'm UTC -6. Put some stuff in production earlier. Awesome. It's 20:30 here, and I'm on Crash Watch right now. Oh, yay. Because you put stuff into production earlier. One tip he gives is to vocalize your prediction of what the outcome of your test will be before you run it. Helps you think better about test scenarios. Absolutely, and I do that anyway. So I'm glad that that is a technique that is recommended because it happens. Yeah, I'm not rating this week either because I don't want to have to do that. Well, gosh, man. So he rated us yesterday, and he's still streaming. Although it's really late for him. So I'll go ahead and do simple game dev since I'm already on his channel, and I'll be lurking the entire day. And he won't be able to do anything about it. But anyway, point is, come back when you have time in the future. Come visit us. I'm here Monday through Friday. Just a reminder that next Monday I may have jury duty, so I won't be streaming if I am called in for jury duty. Seems I'm late. Yeah. But yeah, 10:30 a.m. to 12:30 p.m. Each day. Hang out in our Discord. I'm usually available in there, not always. Right now I'm trying to study for a certification exam that I'll be taking on Sunday. And next week, like I said, is the potential jury duty. So we'll figure out what to do there. Thank you all so much for hanging out with me, for giving me feedback on this test-driven stuff. We are going to continue with it, and we are going to successfully implement test-driven development stuff, and it's going to be good. We're going to do amazing. You guys are already amazing, so yeah. That's it. That's all I got for now. Your Honor, chat says guilty. What? Chat? Yeah, I'm streaming right now on my phone. Anyway, that's it for me for now. We're gonna go head over to Simple Game Dev. He rated us yesterday. I'm gonna get him back for that. Ooh, because that's how it works. Vendetta. All right, ciao for now. If you don't know who Simple Game Dev is, he's a game developer. simply put. Okay, waves. Ciao.